The fragile peace in Gaza shattered on March 19, 2025. The Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, launched a ground offensive into the Gaza Strip. This marked a significant escalation in the conflict between Israel and Hamas. The operation followed a period of heightened tensions and cross-border violence. The IDF's objective was to pressure Hamas into releasing hostages. Hamas had captured numerous Israeli civilians and soldiers in October 2023. The offensive focused on the Netzarim corridor, a strategic strip of land dividing Gaza. The IDF's ground incursion into Gaza represents a serious escalation. It is the first such operation since a ceasefire agreement in January. The ceasefire had brought a temporary halt to months of fighting, however the truce remained fragile, and the recent events have plunged the region back into chaos. The roots of the conflict run deep. Hamas demands an end to the Israeli blockade of Gaza. The blockade has crippled the economy and created a dire humanitarian situation. Israel argues that the blockade is necessary for security reasons. It prevents Hamas from obtaining weapons. The recent escalation was triggered by Hamas's refusal to release the hostages. Israel insists on their unconditional return. Mediation efforts to secure their release have been unsuccessful. Hamas accuses Israel of breaking the ceasefire agreement. They cite continued restrictions on Gaza and the killing of Palestinians. The conflict is further complicated by the political situation in Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu faces pressure from hardliners within his government. They demand a tougher stance against Hamas. This internal pressure makes it more difficult for Israel to pursue a negotiated settlement. The renewed fighting has had devastating consequences for civilians in Gaza. The IDF's airstrikes have caused widespread destruction. Homes, hospitals, and infrastructure have been damaged or destroyed. The United Nations estimates that thousands of Palestinians have been displaced from their homes. The humanitarian situation in Gaza was already dire before the recent escalation. The ongoing blockade has severely restricted the flow of essential goods, including food, medicine, and fuel. The COVID-19 pandemic has further exacerbated the crisis. International aid organizations are struggling to provide assistance to those in need. The fighting has made it dangerous for aid workers to operate. There are growing concerns about a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. The international community has condemned the violence and called for an immediate ceasefire. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. However, no concrete action has been taken. The United States, Israel's closest ally, has expressed support for Israel's right to defend itself. However, the US has also urged restraint and a de-escalation of the conflict. European countries have called for a ceasefire and a return to negotiations. The ongoing violence in Gaza highlights the urgent need for a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. A lasting solution must address the underlying issues, including the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the establishment of a viable Palestinian state.